Welcome to the Washdown podcast, episode number 97. And tonight's guest is Jason Spreitzer, and Chris Nelson joins in as a co-host again, making a guest appearance. We had a great conversation. We talked about overcoming injuries, finding purpose again, and also a little bit of leadership. And I think we just, had a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it. So here you go, episode number 97 with Jason Spreitzer.
Done.
So 5 minutes ago we were done.
Yeah, don't worry. It'll be when Jeremy's talking, not you.
That's how it always is.
Yeah. Friendship, huh?
Yeah.
I forgot to wear my lucky hat.
Oh.
I bought one the other day.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. It's red-black, though.
Has it got a clover on it?
It's got the clover on it.
Yeah, just like the one that I have. Just always
Nope.
following in my footsteps.
Mine's all red, the whole hat. And I don't wear trucker hats because it gives me weird sunburn. You got to be choosy when you buy hats when you're bald.
Those are problems we don't have.
No,
we don't have those problems.
I can't sympathize with
Yeah.
you.
It's bald people problems.
Yeah. That's keeping it real right there.
Oh,
Yeah, those are, I mean, there you go. Things that we don't think about.
yeah, exactly.
See?
And that's we'll go down that road too about the promotions and how, you get to see a different side of things and a bigger picture,
Yeah.
and then even, I would say more in your position now. So,
Yeah.
But first, before we start talking about that, Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off, get a little background. Did you always want to be a firefighter?
You know what? So, yeah, it was kind of funny. I was 4 years old, and I knew I wanted to be two things. I wanted to be a cop, and I wanted to be a firefighter. So, and I didn't care what order it was going to happen in. It was going to happen. In my mind, it was going to happen. And I had an interaction with a fire crew when I was a kid, and I got my head stuck in a ornamental pillar. And I lived in Phoenix, and that's where I'm from. And I couldn't get my head out. My grandma told me, I'm going to call the fire department. And I'm bawling in tears, and I'm 4 years old. And they showed up with an open cab rig, and they truck company. And I was like, I was mesmerized at that point.
Definitely a captive audience.
Oh,
at that point.
yeah. Well, the old salt captain gets off the rig and informs me that he's going to have to cut my head off. And of course, that triggers me to go and start crying even more. And
I love the 80s, man.
Yeah. And then this firefighter gets down on one knee and he wipes my tears off, and my head's still stuck, and he gets me out of this bind I'm in, and then he tells me it's gonna be okay, and and I can be like him, and don't listen to that old salt. And that's the first time I'd ever heard that term, and had no idea what that meant, right? And then they showed us the fire truck, and I was hooked. And that was a rough week in my life, because then I got lost at the mall. And a Phoenix police officer found me, and he informed me that my family lost me and that I wasn't lost.
Oh.
And so he put me at comfort, and then they had asked me who I was with, and I have an identical twin brother, and he too is a firefighter now. And so I informed him that I had a twin brother, and it looks like me. So all these off-duty police officers came to me, looked at me, and then they went out to go find my brother. They found my brother, and we were relocated or located my brother, and then we were reunited about 30 minutes later. And and I remember the feeling as that kid that I felt so calm around that officer and what he'd done, and I just kept focused on it, how big that badge looked, and I felt comfortable, and I knew I was going to do both those jobs. Those individuals impacted where I wanted to be, and I remember it like yesterday, and I also remember that that's how I want to treat people, and I have strived. I worked as a police officer for 4 years prior to becoming a firefighter. Went to college to be a police officer. I have an ex-wife that wanted to move back to Kansas City, and I went to Park University and I ran cross country and track there. And she's like, "Hey, why don't we come back here?" Got hired as with KCPD for a very short stint of a couple weeks, and I was in the academy again. And I left being a patrol investigator at Glendale Police Department, and then I did that for. I was pretty good at what I did, and we were a smaller agency. We had 350 officers, and we were allowed to control our investigations all the way through. So I would do the initial call, and I could go in and do the follow up and follow through with my victims and get closure.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. Closure is a big thing for both firefighters and police officers. So a lot of times we don't get that. And I came here and did my 2 weeks at KCPD, found out I was probably a better fit to do something else. I wasn't going to fit their model at that time of where they were at. And I got notification, hey, Kansas City's hiring, and I literally put my application in the last day that I could. And I got notification to test and did the interviews and I was very fortunate. And back then, we had, 1,200 people applying and testing at one time. And, I made it fairly quick, and I was in the first hiring class out of that group, and I didn't look back and got on the job. And I think I was more mesmerized the fact that I had a police department that was a lot like how the fire department was on the camaraderie. So I left a place, had a few weeks off, and then came to a place that was home and felt like home, where I had brothers and sisters, and it was a family feel. If you were in a bind, you can ask anybody. If you don't know how to do it,
mm-hmm.
you can just go ask, and you're going to find somebody that's going to teach you how to do it. And I think that's still here. I just don't think we talk about it a lot, And we have to go, and we have to remember that when those younger folks come to us and ask us, you gotta give them the same due that you got.
Yeah, or a little bit better.
Yeah, customers. I'm big on customer service. I can't say that enough. That's my big thing. I come from a city in Arizona where Phoenix, the customer service model is ingrained in the fire department and the police department there. And when I was a police officer, I learned customer service from the fire department. They came in and taught us a customer service class.
See, firefighters teaching cops stuff.
Yeah. And I was like, why are we learning from these guys? Right. And they're like, oh, trust me, you'll want this. And it was, you pull somebody over and you have to make a decision. Are you going to write the ticket or give the lecture? And then if you're going to go in and pull them over and you're going to talk to them, I always came in with the philosophy that you needed to let them know what they did and then how can they correct it, and give them the option of where to go to correct it. In the fire department, when we got on here, that was how I felt. Same thing. It's like you didn't know how to do something and somebody's telling you you're doing it wrong. There's always an action of like, okay, then how do I do it? And then they show you how to do it.
Yeah.
And do better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to, we're talking about the people that you're training, the new people coming in. They're the people that you're going to have to work with day in and day out, and your life may be in their hands. So you might want to train them well.
Well, and I also want everybody to know who my family is outside of the fire department, right? So my other scenario is that I think it's so important that we talk to each other and we find purpose and we find commonality. So the first thing in anything is, leadership comes in all different formats, right? Whether it's, somebody that's on the ambulance and they have 6 months on, or somebody that has 25 years on and they have rank. The leader can be disguised without any rank, and recognizing that dialogue. We have a ton of young people that are they have military career backgrounds and they're doing dual roles. And it's fun to interact with those individuals because they have a different expectation. And when you see that expectation, you interact with them. I always enjoy kind of getting into the mind of those individuals because they have a big influence probably than what they think.
Yeah.
And that influence translates into leadership because people are going to follow those people with that influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seems to me from at least my own perspective and what I've seen that those people that have come from that background, they have a set of standards and they want to uphold those standards.
Sure.
And not let them slip.
Sure.
So,
well, and how people become or what drew them to come to do this job. I shared how I my desire was set on early, right? I knew at 4 years old that I was going to do this, and I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was going to do to get here, but I knew that I was going to do it. And my goal never changed. And I think that that's the thing for a lot of people is that sometimes we forget. My capacity and my job may change within the organization, but at the end of the day, I'm still doing what I wanted to do. And that the bigger purpose is to help people, and having that higher view to remember that when I walk into a room, that these are my neighbors and these are people that have called us to assist.
Yeah.
Their worst moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a senior guy, always say to us like, it's that person's emergency, but it's your incident. And that's that part of that filing cabinet system that people put for the mental well-being of the individual for yourself, because you want to go in and be able, how do I go to the next call? And so you're going to do that. But I think if you keep in the back of the mind, it's always that high standard of customer service, at the forefront, internally and externally. Outcomes are way different.
Yeah. What's the old saying? Catch more bees with honey?
Yeah.
Or more flies with honey?
More flies with honey, yeah.
Of course you're going to catch bees with honey. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a sayings guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to fuck it up like 90% of the time.
Well, catching more flies with honey is a big deal. But moreover, I mean, internally and externally, and I say that a lot, but, you're going to get treated the same with me. And that's just how I am. A lot of times we don't take a moment to hear the other person's story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of very quick, do things fast, and without taking the time and slowing down sometimes and really seeing what's there. Because that, we joke about the 2 a.m. tow pain call all the time, but is it really that, or is there something else going on there? And sometimes you got to take a step back and look at things from a different angle. And, you might be able to remedy that 2 a.m. tow pain by spending 10 minutes instead of, okay, let's just go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more options out there than just the hospital for your 2 a.m. tow pains that
a
lot of people don't know, and that I learned within the last year. A lot of things I didn't know. So it really changes how you're helping people.
Well, and I think our service model is changing, and we're in a scenario where when we all first started, almost 20 years ago,
you shut your dirty mouth
Yeah.
20 years ago.
It's creeping up,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, and well, at least for me, but the big thing is like we didn't have relationships with community groups like we do now, and they're slowly growing, and having community partners and taking a moment to listen to that customer or that patient when we're there to find out what their needs are. I don't care if they're somebody without a house or they're somebody with $1 million home. They're going to get the same service, and that same service is going to be that we're there to help you, and we're here to listen to what the problem is. And if we can address the problem immediately, we will. And if we can't, we'll find somebody that can. And I think if you just go with that basic, because a lot of our areas that we respond to, they're mixed, where you have demographics of little to high means.
Yeah.
And our big thing is, how do you do it in a prideful manner that establishes dignity for people? And that's huge. I mean, dignity inside the firehouse, or inside somebody's personal house or not, wherever that home, what they call a home is. And dignity is a big deal.
No, I don't disagree.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting thing.
What? No, it's tough to navigate that conversation too, because what might not offend you or me or Jeremy, if you say that the same thing to somebody else, they might take offense to it, and then now you have to rebuild that relationship in the short amount of time you're there. So it's a really rocky and narrow road that you have to figure out quickly.
It's paved with eggshells.
I like the way I said it better.
I prefer mine, but whatever.
Well,
this is why I quit.
But I keep bringing him back.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like
it's really just a pause. Yeah. Sabbaticals.
Every time I come back, I get 10% more.
It's always 10% of zero. As I was reminded the other day of our tens of listeners.
Who told you that?
Rob. Well, so I went on the swell trip out to California this past weekend, and so we did a podcast while I was out there. Me
Awesome.
and him and a couple of the guys that went, and then one of the board members was out there too. And that was one of the first things Rob said. I can't remember what joke he made, but it was something about the tens and tens of listeners. I don't want to offend anybody or some shit like that. I'm like, funny because it's true.
Well, I mean, I think that that like-mindedness is there, but as we, because I listen to you guys and
Yeah.
I keep my my comments to a minimum, because I think that what I love to I like a raw approach to hear somebody's opinion or where they're at, and I want to hear them in authentic form.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one thing that you've created a platform of authenticity for people.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, bottom line is, with an issue like what we talk about most of the time, which is, mental health and first responders, cops, police, veterans, it's one of those things where you can't sugarcoat that stuff and you can't beat around the bush, because that's been done and nothing gets done when you do that. You kind of got to hit that stuff head on and go, look, here's the problem.
Yeah.
It's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we need to do A, B, C, and D to fix it.
Right.
And what we've been kind of focusing on, at least recently on the podcast, is getting people that have been through that stuff to tell their story and say, hey, look, you just because you have to go to therapy or need to go to therapy or you got to do this or got to do that doesn't mean that you can't continue on, that you can't, be happy and, be functional and still be an asset.
Sure.
Because you absolutely can. There's post-traumatic growth for a reason.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, that's the biggest thing that in a short period of time of kind of even dealing with my own stuff. When somebody gets hurt, injured, sick, or anything of that nature, and you're, whether it's work related or not, typically it is work related in our line of work, because we're all younger and healthy bodies for the most part, and you get hurt or sick, and then all of a sudden it's like, what was your identity through your professional means is now being in question for yourself, and you start trying to figure out, what's next for me, or gosh, this is, I'm Jason the firefighter, or I'm, whatever it would be, and people go, oh, well, you're hurt, oh, you're sick, and
that's the identity that you start to take on. Yeah.
And because you have a peer scenario where people, their coping mechanism is they don't know how to ask that question of like, hey, are you okay? Other individuals that have kind of gone through, being hurt or sick or injured, they typically will go in and reference their own experience, and they will probably come and treat you a little bit differently. We have a large number of people that don't, they don't take in consideration maybe their tone, and they think that in a general area where there's an audience around the kitchen table in the morning is the place that they need to go in and try to maybe create, unthrottled friction with an individual, and that doesn't really help anybody.
Nope.
Having a good bedside manner is the key factor. I'm sure you guys know is, you're learning as supervisors and as you move on and you're managing people and taking the extra step just to check in on that person's well-being and just making the moment just to say, hey, are you okay?
Yeah. Well, an ounce of prevention prevents pounds of repair.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Honestly, and I think that we're scratching the surface on some major things. I think we're headed in the right direction. We have a lot of work ahead of us on being able to help people emotionally and physically with their ailments and things of that nature. But we're making progress. I mean, it's not just here in our town, but it's also in other places too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a national crisis scenario, and I think we're fortunate in our end that we have a lot of people bringing it to light that want to help, and it's just getting all those people that want to do that centralized.
Yeah. Well, it's it comes down to getting it set up, getting the program, writing it, and having the money to implement it, and
Sure.
the buy-in.
Well, buy-in is huge for anything, right? Whenever you do anything.
Yeah, because you can have the greatest program in the world, but if nobody trusts it.
Well, and we've learned in everything we do, when somebody gets hurt, if we have somebody that gets hurt and they're, the first thing that emotional crisis sets in because they're no longer able to work overtime. They're not able to work their regular spots. So we're looking at things that we never thought we were going to have to worry about, and that's can they pay their bills?
Yeah, it's a big one.
And how will that affect the home life, right? I mean, what was probably a scenario that no one really thinks they're going to get hurt or sick, and then all of a sudden it's like, what did you do to prepare yourself for that moment?
Yeah.
Did you prepare yourself for that moment?
Typically, that answer is going to be no.
Yeah.
Because it's never going to happen to me.
Sure.
It might happen to you or that
Right.
other person, but it's not going to happen to me.
Absolutely. It's very interesting. I mean, you go through that and you're just like, wow, and until you go through it, I mean, it's one of those things. Until you've gone through longevity of surviving an event, then it's hard to really grasp it.
Yeah. I was talking to the chaplain out in California with the Swell mission, and he was talking about, basically all the stuff that we're talking about here, and he was talking about getting injured, and that's one of the biggest contributing factors, of people that, they get injured and then all of a sudden it's an opioid addiction, or now they're depressed because it is, like you were talking about earlier, their whole identity is wrapped up in this is what I do and this is who I am, and they can't separate the two, because you're still more than that.
Sure.
I mean, you're still.
But you got to find something to do while you're injured.
Exactly.
And there's always some way you can do something. You just have to find it, or have somebody help you be pointed in the right direction. And then once so even though you're injured, especially in our line of work, there's always something to be done somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's finding that, and that way it kind of takes your mind off of, oh, I'm not working, I'm just sitting at the station, or I'm sitting at home, or I'm in too much pain to do something. You're focused on this task or that task or whatever it is, and then you don't go down that rocky road of depression or opiate addiction, or you have a better chance of not going down it anyway. That's kind of what I found.
Well, it keeps the individual engaged, and isolation is the first step.
I mean, I do like being at home by myself. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I mean, who doesn't like a little, like away from everybody time, right?
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, sometimes peace and quiet is great, right?
You need it. I think it's good for the healing process. But
But I
slippery
mean,
slope.
I feel like we're unique in the system we're in. We're unique because we have the ability to go back to work if you were hurt off the job, and we're very fortunate in that scenario because a lot of places don't have that as an employer opportunity. And as such, purpose is repurposing and having purpose is a big deal, and having programs in place where people can show up to work and they can be a vital piece of the organization, and to be able to have that purpose and to be reminded that they're important. And hearing it from your peers is huge because you need to hear it from your peers. I mean, when the biggest thing or big competitor scenario that we run into is we kind of in our organization we revamped the modified duty piece, and we set it up so that there would be programming involved with people that are on modified duty to come and help with community groups, and we're repurposing that person to help us with some initiatives and to open doors in places we've never been before, whether it's food distribution, feeding homeless people, or underserved community members someplace, finding those needs, and then asking our firefighter personnel or EMS personnel to go in and assist us to help with those needs. It's a big deal. And I can tell you, I mean, I know in my experience, I mean, that's what I did. And I had cancer, and I had to figure out what, it was a shock to me that I had cancer. And then it was a shock to me that I was going to have to figure out what the treatment process was going to be. And then here I am after all that, what am I going to do? And I had to figure out, showing up to the fire station and being stuck at the fire station, and you can only cook so many meals for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
you only have so many recipes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
2.
yeah,
Mac and cheese and hot dogs. Mac and cheese and tuna.
well, and it's not, and it's not to be, and the fact is that you're watching your peers go out, and your friends are going out, and they're answering calls for service, and you're still there, right? They're gone, and the house is empty.
Yeah.
And you're in a lonely place. You better have it clean, because you're what purpose do you have?
Yeah.
And you can only do that so much. And for me, I wanted to do a little bit more, and so I had that opportunity, and I had a battalion chief that approached me on it and asked me if I wanted to do something, and I was like, well, I don't know what that would entail. What do you mean? Come down and work on a 40-hour work schedule. Like, I work 24. I'm off 48. You're going to affect my off-duty job, like every good firefighter, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, and that was truthful, and he laughed, and he's like, yeah, I totally respect it. He's like, I'm just giving you opportunity. I just really feel like you would fit into what we're trying to accomplish with the new process of giving people purpose. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I'll come down next work day, not just because you ordered me, right?
Yeah.
It's
my idea.
Ego, right?
Yeah.
Ego. And so I did, and I came down, and dude, he was amazing. He just nonchalantly just kind of pushed me in a direction, and the door started creaking open for me into views of things that I never thought I was going to have. And my first door opening and the first creak, I can remember, it took us to a kid's hospital, and we interacted with these kids that were all sick, hurt, or injured way more than I was. And they were in need of better human interaction. And oh my gosh, you want to talk about humble? Like, I was humbled quick. And I was like, okay, so this kid needs to interact with me because they don't have anybody else in their life at that moment that can do whatever it is, the activity that we're going to do. And when he did that, I mean, we got done with it. It was tough. I mean, trust me, it was tough because we had kids that were, that were pretty seriously sick. And there's a lot of restrictions that go with like what you can say and what you can't say, how you interact. So you're always trying to remember what the rules are, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, play with this clay. Can I say this? Like, can I? It's like, can I? What am I supposed to say? It's
I can see how that would go horribly, horribly wrong with a group of firefighters.
So,
Oh yeah.
a lot of coaching prior. A lot of coaching
Yeah.
prior. A lot of linguistics on proper use of the English language. Okay, guys, let's practice play here. How are you gonna?
This is acceptable. These are not.
Yeah.
If you think it's funny at the fire department, don't do it.
That's it. So we got that interaction, and I was sold on it. I was like, wow. So wait, I can do this? Like, oh yeah, we'll make this a thing. And that's how nonchalant it was brought to me. It was just like, yeah, we'll just make this a thing. It's kind of cool. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, and then it moved into like, hey, we had another coworker that was she was initiating hands only CPR, and oh my God, she did an amazing job. By herself, she taught 1,200 people hands only CPR in less than a year's time.
That's pretty impressive.
And she built this program. This program still exists, and we teach about 4,000 people a year hands only CPR, and it's hurt firefighter, EMT, paramedics that are doing this, and it's repurposed, and they're going out and instructing and giving people a view of us and getting to interact. And I mean, that's having those moments, knowing that there's bigger, you're not just sitting around, and to go in and be reminded why you got into this business. The weird thing is that when those people go and make life saves, and they said, yeah, I learned CPR from the fire department. And you're like, holy moly. Like,
Yeah.
just one out of these probably 8,000 people that we've taught in this short period of 3 years, then they've saved people.
Yeah. Well, and that's dude, it's that cascade or whatever you want to call it effect of the trickle down. We're going to implement this program. Okay, we need some people. Who can we get? Oh, well, we'll take the modified duty people.
Yeah.
And we'll give them a purpose, have them teach it, and then it just kind of rolls the ball down the hill.
It's like the movie Pay It Forward.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is like, yeah, I mean, watching that happen and reminding people that what they're doing is important for everybody. And I think that's a big thing, because the first response you get from somebody that gets hurt or injured, they're already defeated. And they're like, oh great, I'm being sent to this location to go do this work, and it's punitive. And it's like, no. And the first statement is like, this is not a punitive scenario. We're asking you because we want you.
Yeah.
No one wants to have to go in and be told, hey, you need to show up to this place. But I mean, we do. I mean, we're talking 24,000 smoke alarms get delivered or installed a year. And that's all done by modified duty people.
I would like to thank them from the bottom of my heart.
I mean, think about that. I mean, that's how impactful is that for
it's
our
huge.
community?
It's huge, not just for the community, but for the companies out there.
Oh yeah,
because I mean, I don't know how many you've run in your career. Probably
lost count.
Yeah. Of going and changing smoke detector batteries or installing smoke alarms.
Sure.
I mean, you're taking a company out of service to go do that.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not saying it's not a valuable thing and that they shouldn't or whatever, but that's taking up time that they're out of service, that if something happens in that district, well, now you got another fire truck coming from further away.
It is an amazing prevention tool in a lot of different levels. But it's also, you get to go in and those individuals that are going and doing that work. I mean, for them to, it's not just making a call, and it's not just getting the smoke alarms to that person, but it's having that conversation, interaction. You may be the only interaction that you had with that resident for the week. That resident typically is over 65 for us, and and you'll pick up on it, and our people are skilled enough that they can pick up on the tone, and they can ask, is there anything else we ask that question, is there anything else that you find yourself needing right now? And it is amazing where it'll take you.
Yeah.
and doing that, just simple conversation, and it opens the door, and it becomes very preventative for us to have to show up to that house at 3:00 in the morning.
Yep.
For the annoying beeping smoke alarm.
Yeah.
It leads down so many different roads with them because they have questions, they don't know who to ask. Well, now you're standing here, and it goes back to customer service.
Yeah.
Just being nice with a smile on your face, answering the questions. You might be there 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, but you just
But
prevented.
that
how
20,
many
30
calls
minutes is so big for that resident.
Yeah.
And
huge.
Yeah, I think it is big. And going back into that repurposing piece, though, I mean, it's like, and people, instead of going down the rabbit hole of dark of like, where do I go and where we're at. I mean, one is like, how cool is it that you were able to have that conversation with a chaplain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And chaplains serve a different purpose than peer counselors.
Yeah.
Right. And then peer counselors serve a different purpose than mentors. And we're implementing all this into our organization, and it's been around in different forms throughout the years, but I think we're finally kind of getting into a bigger mix of kind of a variety. I mean, all we can do is get better.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, it's reminding the younger people, though, that those things exist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like I said before, you can have the best programs in the world, but if nobody knows about them, or if they have a skewed vision or version of it,
right,
of what they think it is, they don't know exactly what it is, then it can be an issue.
Well, we all have our own version of what EAP is, right? So we all
don't pull that cord.
Let's talk about EAP.
But we all do. I mean, and it all comes in different forms, right?
Yeah,
it does. But I mean, my version of what I experienced back, 15 years ago is a completely different version now. And I mean, all we can do is grow. It's never a one size fits all model. It never will be. But all we can do is keep moving forward and try to get better at what we do and offer services. I mean, it's just and it's the beginning. It's a beginning phase for immediate, just under crisis moments in people's lives, and then getting them to that next phase, keeping the bigger, running the marathon with them, and hoping that they'll continue on that path to hopefully getting a full-time therapist in their life, or having a counselor.
Yeah.
Somebody outside of your regular support system so you can kind of dump on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have those. I mean, it's nice to pay somebody to listen to you sometimes,
Yeah. I don't disagree with that.
But then you get the homework at the end of the visit, right?
Yeah. There's always homework.
Are you going to be a good student? That's the question. Are you going to do your homework?
Well, and that's the thing, though. A lot of, firefighters and cops, they will give therapy a shot or whatever, and they go and they have a bad experience. Or they go one time and it's like, oh, well, I should be fixed now. I went once. That's not how it works. You got to put some work and effort into it, and the therapist isn't going to fix you. They're going to give you the tools to fix yourself.
Guilty. Been there, done that, right? Thinking that I can just go, I'll do my six visits with EAP or 8 visits that you get, and then I'm in a therapy session now, and now I've done my 12, right?
Yeah.
And, I've gone for like maybe a year, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. I got this. And then you're like, and then it creeps up on you.
Yep.
And you're trying to figure out where the agitation and sensitive sounds that certain sounds are now creeping into you, and you're like trying to figure all that stuff out, and or you're becoming very short about how somebody possibly washes the fire truck.
Why'd you both look at me? That's one of the few things I may know about. I don't care if the bathroom gets clean, but the fire truck's going to be clean.
Yeah. Just pay attention to what the new normal is for a person, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is you have to continue the work.
Yeah.
Now, you don't necessarily, I think, and I believe, you don't necessarily have to continue to see a therapist after a certain amount of time.
I think you'll get the tools to maintain yourself.
If you go to the right one, and they will teach you the tools and deal with the issues that led you there, then
I also think
Yeah.
your frequency of use of a therapist can change.
Oh,
You know, like,
absolutely.
and I think when you have a good one, they're gonna recognize that with you, and they're gonna explain to you. You know, you come back, and then it dwindles to where it's no longer a couple times a month, and now it's just monthly. Then to it's once every couple months to once every quarter to
Yeah,
biannually,
check-ins.
right?
Yeah.
And you learn to be a better teller of your problems
Yeah.
through that system. Like when you got to do your updates and figure that out, and you're figuring out like what's my immediate right now issue, and then what's all the junk in the drawer,
Yeah.
and then did the stuff in the junk drawer make it even into my filing cabinet yet? And we live our lives that way.
Yeah.
And it's funny when those triggers are typically in that junk drawer, and we see it. We see it a lot, and knowing that it's okay to maybe approach that person about their junk drawer being left open.
Easy now.
Yeah.
You're talking about checking in on one
Yeah.
another, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just I do that a lot with people, right? Because in my position of handling media people and doing headline checks, as I go in through that process, and I'm looking at trying to figure out what is the public view, and then what's the internal customer service view of things. We'll find ourselves where people have their junk drawer open. And that was probably the moment that the headline was written, is because their junk drawer was wide open, and they didn't take the moment. And it happens to all of us, right? But the thing is that the junk drawer gets left open, and if we as a crew, or we as a station, or we as a district know that person's junk drawer is wide open, and they didn't come up and ask them if they can help them, that's on all of us.
Yep.
And we all have to take the hit on that. There's no getting around that.
Yep.
And I think that's the accountability piece. I think that's one thing that I see us changing a little bit more in that. I see there being not as many check-ins as I would love to see, but check-ins are happening, not at the frequency, and I think they need to.
Yeah.
And if you love your friends, I think, because that's your family every third day, or your work family. For me, it's a 40-hour work week now. I mean, I think I see it more often in my office now, walking through the halls and taking a moment to check on people, because it's in a frontline conversation, because you have those awkward moments where maybe you go silent on somebody, and you're not communicating with them. And if you're a normal communicator, and you're always checking in, and you walk past somebody without saying hello,
That could be an indicator.
that is an indicator, right? And what do and I would just ask that people take a moment and just check on their loved ones, and even if you don't get along with that person.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you're still with them for 24 hours a day, every third day.
And
And I'd go even a step further than that. Your life could be in their hands, or their life could be in your hands.
Yeah.
I mean, we put ourselves in those situations. It's not like going into a house fire is inherently safe, or, working a car wreck on the interstate is just without risk.
When you go into those dangerous environments, and you're my favorite, but my favorite response is like, oh yeah, it's just a house fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just oh, it's a bread and butter house fire. I'm like, well, first off, it's somebody's worst day,
Yeah.
right? And then the second part of that is that there's no just
Yeah.
right. I mean, we're in the we're in a crisis mode of handling it. We have systems in place, and we conduct ourselves in a great scenario of I like to think we have some of the best customer service and professionalism that would out in the nation, and at least we have a lot of people looking up to us for it. And there's always room for improvement. I don't care where you're at, and there is no best of the best. I think that I think everybody, that when you're at that higher level of expectation, you're looking at it and you're breaking it down, trying to figure out to get better, and training and taking the moment to do those things, learn your craft. And some of the hardest captains I've ever worked for have been the ones that did not want to go out and train. The best ones that I've worked for are the ones that bring it up every day and say, "What do you want to learn today?"
Yep.
And that has a direct, I think that has a direct reflection. I don't care if it's they want to learn about mental situational awareness. How do you talk to a mentally ill person? How do you go in and talk to somebody that has special needs? Whatever it is, you can train.
Yeah. You should do one thing every day. One thing.
Yeah.
To get just a little bit better.
And
Watch the fire truck. That's really my theory.
So
washing the fire truck.
Starting your day with a daily
Every
routine.
Day, wash the fire truck.
Wash the fire truck. Yeah.
And then you clean. So in that 25 minutes, you've accomplished 2 goals. Because it was at the Navy Admiral at the University of Texas speech. I can never remember.
Making your bed.
McRaven.
Make your bed.
Yeah.
Make your bed. Same thing. I mean, it's 2 things you accomplish, and then now what's that going to lead to? So now you're sitting around the table because you've done your cleaning and you've done your fire truck, and you're talking about the menu for the day. And what are we going to do today? What are we going to learn today? So it all just builds on itself, and then you get into that routine. But it starts with washing the fire truck, which also leads into having pride, which leads into more training. It's all in that same circle. It all grows and builds on itself.
I laugh because every company has a different version of how, like what's the right amount of suds.
Yeah.
We do it better.
Yeah. I don't care. As long as it's clean. That's all I care about. And
Yeah.
when you're in a multi-engine house, you wash all the rigs.
Yes.
I can't stand when people wash a fire truck
Oh.
but not wash an ambulance or the chief's buggy. No. If I wash one, I'm washing all 3, 4, 6. I don't care how many rigs are in that house. We're doing them all. And just because I'm on the fire truck today or I'm on the ambulance today, I'm still washing all of them.
So you're saying as a team,
Yeah, it's a team building activity.
right, to include anyone that isn't that battalion chief?
I didn't even say the battalion chief can come out.
If they're available.
able to, yeah.
Yeah.
They got a lot going on in the mornings.
Yeah.
But I've seen chiefs come out and help
I
wash
think
and
that
fight over the...
That's the one thing I've learned
brush.
in what we do now in a duration of time is that the administrative duties that a battalion chief and a safety officer and a safety captain would have to do in the morning routine is so different than what it was.
Yeah,
even 15, even 3
4
years
years
ago.
ago.
Yeah, it's not even closely to being the same. It takes both people to really administratively get the district on point
Yeah.
to be able to do it.
Well,
And
I mean, I can tell you from my perspective, I've been a DSO for since September, and there have been rarely times that we've gotten out of that office before 8 in the morning.
yeah,
And usually it's not until 9-ish, just from doing all of the paperwork stuff that you need to do, that day.
but don't you remember being the young firefighter trying to figure out why, like, oh, I could do it better, like, oh, why are they in the office and doing that stuff, and not having grace to that process,
Or why am I going here when I could go here and do this?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite is the lineup, like when somebody figures out that, like, well, why am I getting detailed over here, right? And then it's like, but I know that this slot is open over here, but then it's over here, and not understanding that believe it or not, there's like 16 people in the morning that are making the decisions on where things are going to go, right? And have an understanding that it's 16 people all having conversation. And believe it or not, those 16 people had a conversation about you. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't just like, it was 16 people that talked about you, the junior person. And knowing that now, I'm like, holy moly, like it like that's what it took to get me over to this station over here.
Yep.
Was that conversation with all those people.
Because it's not, it's again, like I said earlier, it's about a widened perspective.
Yeah.
Because it's not just what's going on at your station.
Sure.
You're looking at the whole city's picture.
Yeah.
So something in another district can affect where, a detail is sent to, or an overtime is hired at, or...
Well, I even go, we're now in a metropolitan response, right? We're in auto aid, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't take in consideration like what it takes, and I think we're figuring it out now. Where if we have a unit that isn't operational continuously in a southern area or a northern area that has an outlying need because their neighbor is short staffed, and the burden becomes heavy for that group to carry the weight, and knowing that fresh bodies and minds and being able to go to those spots is important because you need to refresh your people. And the taxing that we all go through into our system is huge. And I don't think a lot of people don't realize that they may not feel like that they're being remembered at that moment. But trust me, there's a ton of people that know that you're working and that it's not easy to do what you're doing, And it may be my grandma that you may be responding to. And if it's my grandma, I hope I get you at your on your A game, the best of what you can, at least at what your best is for that moment.
Yeah. Well, and I think that should be the goal for all of us.
Everybody.
Every call, we should be on our A game.
But it took a lot of people to get you to that spot. And it's tough though when we don't, and if we don't consider our neighbors, if they're short, like I said, because the southern area right now currently, we know we have some situations with smaller agencies where they're not fully staffed.
Yeah.
And they're having a hard time.
Yeah.
Really hard time. And we're carrying the weight. And and that's what I love about our people is that even though we have those hard conversations with each other and we kind of feel we feel it's like it's difficult, our people step up. But you have to have a conversation. It's like any good coach or team captain, right? You got to go in and have that conversation with your teammate, and you got to tell them like, "Hey, this is why we're doing what we're doing."
Yeah, and I think that is the key, Jason, is being transparent and going, "These are the issues, and this is what we got to do."
I'm a big believer in that.
It's not going to be fun. It's going to suck, but we're all going to help, and this is how we're going to get through this. And
I'm going to use that quote. It's going to suck, but we're going to get through it. That's my next quote.
That should be our next T-shirt.
Yeah.
We'll go back to the embrace the suck like the military.
Yeah.
But no, it's true. I mean, I've seen the same thing with, some situations that have happened recently with us of having, trainees. And it's like some of the guys, I don't want to train them or this or that. But I've had other guys that have been like, send them to me. Let me do it. And it's like, cool, you got it. And I've got no issue. I know that if I put them with that FTO, they're going to come out jam up. As much as he can make them that way, they're going to come out jam up.
And I love people that are wired to teach and not afraid to ask for the student and in anything. I mean, it's like the biggest thing, right? When you're learning how to do a water relay. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
How awkward was it the first time that you had to figure out how to get large, copious amounts of water from miles away?
Yeah.
And hook it all together.
It always runs so smoothly.
Yeah. And I remember the first time doing it, and like you're just kind of caught off guard, and you're like, "We're gonna do what?" And we're gonna do. We're an urban interface fire department, right? And they're like, and yeah, but we have some scenarios where our urban-faced places don't have good water sourcing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because we've had some really good leaders, leaders are people that will influence a need and go in and say, hey, have we ever done this? And we haven't done it. Can we? And then to hear somebody say, why not? And then we go in and we go do it. And I think that's a daily thing that does transpire and across, our areas. And I find those moments pretty dang special because like when you have somebody that wants to teach it and you have a bunch of people involuntold, and then you watch the change happen after you do it, right? Because like anything we do, right? Because it's like no one sets out to want to do hard physical labor in a moment's notice. Wait a second, I get paid to do that, right? That's what the public expects.
Mm-hmm.
So carry that expectation with your people, and whoa, what a difference, and I just remember learning, somebody asking me a bunch of questions who now is much higher in the fire department, and him saying, do you know what it, and just going in about every piece of equipment on that rig and asking me if I had an answer for it, and him not knowing that I was prepared because I had a classmate that prepped me that this was going to happen, and I had an answer for everything. Shut him down, right? And I couldn't remember any of it. And now, because it's like, because you go into your expertise of wherever you're going to go. But at that time, for that day, I was a subject matter expert on everything that had to do with the rescue, right? And this is pre-heavy rescues, and knew where everything needed to be, right? And he was shocked, like, how do you know all this? And then what he didn't know is that everybody was standing on the other side of the rig because we're waiting for his reaction, because he did this with all the junior firefighters. But and because he would give you a hard time if he didn't have the answer, and then I had an answer for everything, and then he was just like blown away. And the joke was that he didn't know how to react to it. This was his MO, to do this with everybody. And and now we've become great friends because of that moment, and the fact that his guys loved him that much, that to show him how much they loved him, they took me out before he got back and did what he did. So what he doesn't know is that I had 6 people taking me through for the duration of a whole shift on how everything worked out. Nice. The joke was on them, because they were all doing what he would do anyway, right?
Yeah.
And that's that camaraderie piece that I think that's the spirit of where we have, we have those moments. I think we can have those moments on a regular, but we get so tied up on microaggression scenarios, and we don't let it go. And we have those moments where we can let those things not be there.
Yeah. Well, I think it all goes back to intent. And if I hesitate to apply, or I would hesitate to apply a lot of those terms to the fire department, police department, or whatever, because a lot of what we do, like what you would term microaggressions or hazing or something like that, is really just testing, because we want to see, okay, where is the line at?
Sure.
Is this person going to be here whenever the shit hits the fan? And if they can take this much, then that's what we correlate that to, And obviously, I'm not endorsing, some of the stuff that used to go on.
Well, I think I think that we go into that scenario when we're learning now, and I think that we'll have those moments where, how many times will you stand outside of a fire station and a large copious amounts of water magically arrive on you from above?
Freak rainstorms happen in the Midwest, Jason.
I'm just telling you, right?
Or if
you look up and there's like not a cloud in the sky, and you're trying to figure out how you're wearing all this water.
I read this thing where rain can fall from miles away, like you can't even see the clouds. It's just the way the wind carries it.
It comes in buggy. Comes in buggy windows too.
Looking at that and understanding what is an acceptance process into where you're at, and the difference between that and where we do have scenarios where people think it's okay to be borderline criminal in some things, and when we have and knowing that difference, right?
Yeah,
there's a big difference.
Yeah, there is definitely. It's not even a small line. It's a big fat line that's there that you shouldn't cross.
And I think, as a headline checker, because that's what I deal with, and I look at that and I think, what I hope for is that, your conscience is speaking to you when you're taking into consideration anything that you do, right? And you just have to step back and ask yourself, is this how I want to be remembered?
Exactly.
And the reality is that a lot of people will go in and I don't know, legacy on this job is an interesting thing because a lot of people want to be remembered, right? And I think I go in with it that I want to do the best I can do at that moment, and I want to be able to make it so whoever takes over or does the job next has the tools so they don't have to do it over again.
Right. But they don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Reinvent the wheel? No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Well, and here's the thing about legacy. I mean, we've kind of talked about this. This job was here before us. It's going to be here after us. It's going to continue on. And if you can do, like what you said, make it to where the person coming after you doesn't have to reinvent the wheel.
Sure.
How much more can you ask than that?
Well, I mean, the new term is succession planning, right? So if I can make it so that somebody can succeed peacefully, and if you're leaving a spot and you're going to go bid a different spot and you're someplace else, and your spot is now going to be taken over by somebody else, and you want to be able to leave them with the knowledge of how to work within the district and how to do your job, and at least how you did it, so that they kind of have a experience of it. I mean, and when you floated and you're floating now, and so you're going through this new process and you're learning some new things.
Learned a lot of new things.
All in a day.
In a day. But isn't that the truth, though? I mean, like,
there's so much you don't know, or there's things that you don't know that you've forgotten, and that you'd be reminded of, and then you learn new things, and
there's things you think you know,
and you don't.
I had the best interaction.
I just want to go home. That's all I want to do. I was like, I want to go home and start over.
Yeah.
But it was a great day. Don't get me wrong. It was a great day.
I had an interaction with somebody that was within pretty high up, and they came to me to apologize and about an incident that we had between each other, and what I loved about it was that I didn't go to them. I didn't. We had an awkward moment, and we were in an incident, and they thought I was sharing information that I probably shouldn't be privy to with about something, and my job is to collect as much information as I can and kind of look at things differently, and I was just doing what I was supposed to do, and they didn't really take in the full view or consideration, because what they did is they didn't see past my rank, and they couldn't see past my rank. They saw me as I'm equal to that of a driver in rank, but I have the access point to a very, very higher up place, and sometimes it's good to have kind of that informal and formal process, and but that microaggression and they had that. They're like, they flat out laid me out verbally on something, and it took them about 2 weeks to come back to me, and they apologized to me privately about this moment. Now, I will go to the ends of the earth for that individual because they did that, right? And that's the one thing about what we do on this job, is that it probably took a lot of courage for that person to come to me and to eat some humble pie, and be able to go in and have that conversation with me. And to be honest with you, I kind of forgot what I had done. So
gotta be like water off a duck's back.
Because I just, there's so many occurrences in life, right? And so, like, what you do. So I had to kind of talk for like a minute and figure out what that awkward conversation was, and then I was like, and then I had the aha moment, like, oh yeah, I remember what it was, It's like, and I'm like, but to me it was, I kind of jokingly made the point of like, I've already forgotten about that, like that's to me that was not a big deal, like, because the reality of it is that I'm set out to do a job. And how people react or what they do and how they take it and how they digest it, I can't control that outcome.
No, you can't.
And
I think a lot of times people forget that when you're at work, it's not personal.
Yeah, well, you hope it's not.
It should
You
be
hope it's
personal.
not.
Yeah, we are talking about the fire department, Chris.
But there's certain moments that where, again, where you see that a person or group overstep their boundaries, and then, but it gets addressed, right? You hope it does.
Yeah, you hope it does, and then you just sometimes we all need an ass chewing. Let's be honest.
Well, motivational speeches are always important for everybody.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. We all answer to somebody, right? Everybody does. And keeping that in the back of your mind of when you're doing this, that's the bigger picture, right? Is remember that you're always going to answer to somebody for it. And motivational dialogue is important, Choice words sometimes occur during that motivational dialogue.
Sometimes the firefighter he comes out.
Well, but I wouldn't even say that. Everybody has cultural differences, and everybody's going to have different verbiage that they're going to use when they're describing something. And when that transpires, I think that the thing is that was it in the heat of the moment? Like, was it battle driven? Were you at a fire? Were you at and then did the end goal get accomplished with the way that person was doing the work and the way that it was brought up, to correct the action? Mm-hmm. Did that happen? If it didn't happen, then that's the retraining moment, right?
Yeah.
You go out and retrain as a company, and everybody gets to go do that. And
there's a process.
There is.
See, I don't see 4-letter words as cuss words. They're sentence enhancers.
But if everybody,
Punctuation.
well, culturally too, though. And I'm not saying that it's okay to, I'm not by any means. If it's a regular conversation and a person just speaks like they speak like a, what we would say is a sailor or a truck driver, and they're just, and that's their, that's dubbed their way of talking. As long as they know their audience, and that's a done in private scenario, then I'm, all about it. But don't show up at my elementary school and think you're going to be able to talk to my kids that way.
Yeah, they definitely
Guilty.
know your
Guilty of
audience.
doing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it slips out.
Everybody does it once, and then it's like, and then you get told like, yeah, that was like, hey, you did a really great job, except for that one part.
Yeah.
I think you might have been there when I got the fiberglass stuck in my hand and I let out the MFer at preschool.
Not good.
Yeah. There's a
I
level of.
I did great up to that point. Then when the fiberglass stuck me, it came out.
Everybody has different communication ways. It's like ways to communicate.
Yeah. There's a level of professionalism that we need to remember, especially when dealing with the public, our customers.
Yeah.
That, not everybody speaks like we do.
Yeah. Well, and everybody has a different version of angry, right? And I think that's the one thing that I've learned doing what I do now. I'll get a phone call from somebody who they're raging about maybe how they were treated, and then you find out that they that maybe that event where they felt like they were mistreated, you might find out that there was a lot of inebriation on their part, and that they probably, all their faculties weren't probably there. Mm-hmm. So there was a misinterpretation of what transpired in that process. It's not to say that their version of it isn't, it was probably very real for them in what transpired. But, and I think that we have a group of administrators that do a really good job handling and putting those kind of mishaps out quickly and create a corrective and a trusting experience for that person. And I think we do a pretty good job doing that. And that's been a history for a long time, to be able to do that, take the angry person and check in on them. And goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, are you okay? And that's even checking in on our own people.
Yep.
And asking if they're okay.
Well, that's especially checking in on our own people. Because, at the end of the day, we talk about how this is a family and a brotherhood and all that stuff. And, that's part of it, because you wouldn't, if, you broke your leg or whatever, I wouldn't go, hey, Jason, walk that off.
Yeah.
The bone's sticking out. I'd be like, hey, you might want to sit down and we'll get you some help.
Well, and
I'm going to give you a cup of dirt, though.
Rub
A
on
little
it.
dirt.
Here's some for later.
You're that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Well,
So-
and I think what my question to you guys is then, like, when you go and you have a hurt when you have a hurt firefighter or a friend that is a firefighter, and when you're looking at them, do you find yourself finding common ground with them quickly to be able to figure out how to create empathy? Or do you see yourself in a scenario where you or where you're just like, well, oh yeah, he's hurt again, or she's hurt again?
I think it's on an individual basis. Maybe we'll have that conversation after.
Yeah. Well,
But I mean, no, we'll just have it right now. It's fine. You know as well as I do, there are people that abuse the system, right?
sure.
And so sometimes it's like, you again. Okay, what can we do now? But you still, especially in the positions that we're in now, there's this murky area of, okay, well, they're not my firefighter, so how much am I going to be stepping on that captain's toes? But then at the same time, we're both still firefighters. And if I notice something's wrong, then it needs to be addressed. And if you
yeah.
look at it from like we'll just call it a safety issue, then everybody is responsible for safety,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
There are times it's hard to be objective.
Yeah.
So
You got to take your personal feelings out of it.
I think
Yeah.
what I've learned in doing what I'm doing and going back, where I can never go back to the field, right? I have no lymph nodes in my neck, so if I get exposed to fire, and our hoods, the union is working hard with through the labor management committee process. We have great people that are really working on what is going to be the nanotechnology for our hood systems that we wear. And that technology is going to make a difference for the future for the next people coming in, that they're not going to have a sooted hood resting on their neck, and then you take your fire wipes and you're going to wipe the fire off and all that, and you're going to address all those things. Those are all these are great implemented things that we have now in place. My exposures were well before that moment. And it doesn't matter where you did your fire time. It's how you addressed your equipment and what you were exposed to, and
Like washing your gear.
having extractors available. The fact that we had an auxiliary that stepped up. I mean, oh my gosh, how great is that you had an auxiliary get us washers and dryers in every station. I mean, like tears in my eyes. That's like great stuff. That was all post my cancer, by the way, and it's like, which is great.
This would have been helpful yesterday.
But I love
Think
it
about
though.
the time when we all came on.
Right.
We didn't have the extractors.
No.
Washing your gear
Right.
was kind of looked down on
Right.
in a way.
I'll be honest with you. I have a lot of respect for I look at clean gear differently now.
I do too.
But that's also knowing what it costs to get treated for cancer, right?
Yeah.
And so, and you wouldn't know it. I mean, but the kind of cancer I had was a throat and a neck cancer that they took half my tongue, and so I had to teach myself how to speak again, right? And so they took part of my forearm, put it into my mouth, and then they took a vein from my forearm, and that's what gives it the blood supply. And I was like, man, I didn't know what I was going to do. But my dad had said to me, we're at the hospital, he says, hey, he goes, mind you, I can't talk, right? I have half a tongue, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And with a forearm in it, right? So, so I cannot. So I'm just, I'm just like, blah,
That's
blah,
why
blah,
he's
blah,
always
blah.
speaking off the cuff.
I am all day.
Wow.
By the way, I've been sitting on that one
We're all
for a long
friends
time.
here. We're all friends here.
I've been waiting for the right time to use it.
I'm using that later. That's gonna be my opener
And
later.
I'm just mad that I didn't think of it.
And that's what I'm talking about, right? And it's like, and my dad says, he says, so what are you going to do now? Doc said that you don't have lymph nodes, you're probably not going to be able to go back, fight fire. And mind you, I'm just now like 48 hours after the fact on a Christmas. It was Christmas Eve when I had my surgery, and so I'm like, and I'm just like displaced right now, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And I had this overwhelming experience for myself where I was like, like anything, you get knocked down, and what are you going to do? And it was quickly, I quickly came in with purpose, and I was like, you know what? I go, and I was typing on my phone, and so I would message through my phone, and I messaged that I'm going to become the public information officer. I'm going to be the PIO. And he just kind of looked at me, and he's like, you only have half a tongue. I go, and I left it at that, and then I went to bed. It's like, and I was like,
challenge
yeah,
accepted.
yeah, and I was like, and I set out, and I figured out at that moment that I knew that was going to be a goal for me, but it was not going to be a goal of like, it's bigger than that. It's about fire prevention, customer service. It's about doing bigger and better for everybody, and understanding that we used to be in a system where you just talk about a fire, you show up to a fire scene, and you go and you talk about it, and that's it. And then we didn't do this internal, external customer service piece that would be associated with it. And we're growing, and it'll be a grown scenario. So that the next person comes in, no matter what rank they are, because I think it's a talent that only a select few people will probably have, because not everybody can do this job. You have to be very thick-skinned, and you have to not take it personal when people are having a bad day. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of bad days out there. But what you have to do is when that bad day arises, look at that person and tell them it's going to be okay. And don't be facetious about it, right? Be authentic. And truly, I would never tell anybody something I didn't really think about them. And otherwise, I'd just be quiet. Those watching, you know who you are. But at the same time, it's like you go in and I think it's funny because you just, I set that goal out, and I was like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And, but I had no idea how I was going to do it, right? And if I'd known that all the work and everything that was going to arise and how it would play out, and that same opportunity arose itself, and it's like, hey, we want you to come do this. Oh, hey, by the way, do you mind doing social media accounts? Hey, do you mind writing this press release? Hey, do you mind? And so then I was doing all these different little things, not realizing that, what I believe is my higher power stepping in and presenting this to me. And I was saying yes to it. I was like, I never said no. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I just became a yes person of challenges. And COVID hit, and I found myself in the March of 20. I was on spring break. My wife and I, we were on vacation. I got a phone call that I needed to come back, and that I was going to be reassigned into a situation where I needed to be prepared and ready to go. And I had no idea what that meant. And the fire chief had asked me if I would take on the role of helping write press releases, and there was going to be a lot of policy changes that probably transpired. We had assistant chiefs that had the fortitude to see this back in January, that ordered PPE, that knew well in advance that something wasn't right, and they knew that they needed to step in and prepare ourselves for a major event. And we took what was a interesting scenario in labor groups, labor unions stepping in and figuring it out through great communication with other locals, and that was a trying time for everybody. But what I think the hardest part is we knew it was going to be taxing on everybody. We just didn't know what cost. And I think that's the part that, the hours and hours that people were, friends dying. Mm-hmm. Not knowing what an exposure really was. Now, mind you, at the same time, we lost our infectious disease person to retirement. So, and reassigned a new person and gave them an additional, somebody's job. It was just an added. We had a full-time person on this, and then we added the duties of that role to somebody else, which he did a fabulous job and stepped up. And it was just amazing. But to lose your heart and soul of the person that was super prepared for it. Now, they gave the succession book to the other person, which was, if we didn't have that, I think we would have been in dire straits. But the amount of stress that it created on everybody was just intense. We had, I think it was 60 to 70 policy changes that we had to write. on what was going on. You want to talk about an adaptable workforce?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That our workforce did that.
Yeah. And not to mention the people that volunteered to come in.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Somebody getting COVID and then somebody coming in and stepping up and taking the shift and be able to do it. I mean, like, and I'm just like, I'll go back to that and I'll look at that like, you know, once in a, you know, probably 100 generations experience. I mean, it's really, you know, it's just amazing. Well, I guess that's not true because it happened in the, you know, the Spanish flu, but
Yeah.
But the reality is that, but you know, we're in a time of documenting it, right, and
Yeah.
remembering and being able to go through those things, and our workforce that's the part of the resiliency that I know exists, but we're still recovering from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that we've got a long way to go to recover from it.
I mean,
because it cost us a lot of people.
And the stresses and how to ascertain or deal with it.
Yeah.
I want to know how everybody gets to go on a free surfing trip. That's what I want to know.
Just got to talk to Rob, man.
Hey, so if I don't want to go on a surfing trip, can we go on like a cabin trip?
That's not what swell does.
It'd be swell to be in a cabin.
But how? I mean, but how cool? I mean, you know, I had the privilege of meeting those guys and talking with them, and same thing with firefighters, KCK firefighters doing golf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just like I mean, these organizations that are out there to help with mindfulness and to be able to, all I can do is encourage peers to want to jump in and do, you know, if you have an activity that you like to do, and I'm not just stepbrother activities. I mean, like, you know, I'm talking about other activities.
Yeah.
You know, besides samurai swording and
Hey,
and
karate in the
band.
garage is never overrated.
But I mean,
that brings back some memories for me. A certain person I used to work with.
But I mean, that's cool though, right? I mean, like, and you've had these people on, and
Yeah.
you've talked with these people, and I think those are in previous episodes, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's as a friend, but also as a you know, listener. I mean, what an appreciation I have for this show and what you guys do, because it's a big deal. I mean, and that those individuals, they all created their programs because of a bad day.
Yeah.
They all recognize their bad day, and they're like, I don't want anybody else to have. I want them to feel like that their bad day isn't going to be on repeat.
Yeah.
And I think that's my biggest thing, is that when you know you're having a bad day, you know,
Yeah.
like they're out there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They are.
Being
And
able to recognize it's huge,
yeah.
and then being able, you know, having that, going back to the toolbox and being able to fix your bad day. That way, it doesn't continue to be a bad day and compound on itself.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I think, for me, that's kind of the key, is being able to recognize it, whether it's me or somebody else. And then, hey, try this. Hey, try that.
Yeah.
And then stopping that bad day there. And then the rest of your shift is, or whatever day it is, whatever you're doing is
Yeah. Well,
not bad anymore.
Yeah. It goes back to prevention. If you can stop it, you know, before it becomes a huge gaping wound, you know, that's the goal, is to not let it get to be that big thing. And that's why, you know, I'm thankful for those organizations too, because that's their goal, you know,
Yeah.
is to.
How cool is that? I mean,
It's
seriously.
phenomenal. And, you know, they're not the only ones out there that are like that.
Oh no,
So-
no. I mean, these
There's
are
a lot.
Yeah.
there's you know, there's probably thousands.
There's-
Within you know, in our communities. I think that's the thing, is everybody knows a firefighter or a police officer someplace else, or a nurse, or you know, or somebody in our line of work, and I think it's when you recognize, or you're having that conversation with those individuals, and you're finding out in their town they may not have it.
Mhm.
You know, do the follow up and forward them the email and or send them the show. I think that could be the greatest gift you can give somebody. Is like, hey, have you caught this podcast? Or you know, a simple share
Yeah.
is an amazing thing, because I mean, we haven't even. I mean, you've addressed so many different topics, whether it's through addiction or it's through, you know, talking about mental health or how they're coinciding and where things are going through, and you know, I think that in a survivorship scenario for people, because, you know, even for like what my scenario with cancer stuff, it's like, Cancer Support Network, man, I called them. They were like, wow. I'm like, they sent me a box, and they're like, it was a simple gesture, but it was something that of what they did is that they sent me how to organize my thoughts. Because they knew, and I was like, "How do they know this?"
I'm the only one who's ever been through this before.
How did they know this? So that's this is. I was like a little kid. I opened. And the rep called me, and he says, "Hey," he goes, "I sent you a box. Let me know when you get it." Of course, I didn't call him, and he called me because he had a tracking number on it. He's like, "Hey, you got this box?" And I'm like, I go in, I pop the box open, and he's like, he goes, I'm gonna stay on the phone while you open the box. And I'm like, okay. And he's on the phone with me, and I'm like, all right. And it was that simple gesture of them being on the phone with me while I opened the box. I said, okay, so let me explain to you what you got here. And it was like a dad to a kid on Christmas explaining the tools. Okay. And It was like, it's getting your first toolbox, right? And I was like, okay, so what am I looking at? He's like, okay, so that's not just a bin. That's your filing system. And I was like, okay, and it's this, it's a plastic bin. And I'm like, okay, and it has files in it. It's marked, and it's, got my medical bills. It's got doctor's visits, and it's organized all the way through. He's like, yeah, if you open that and you look down at the bottom, he goes, there's this section for business cards. And I'm like, okay, so what's that for? He goes, well, that's for all the specialists and all the doctors that you're going to go visit. If you need another one, let me know, and I'll send you another one if you need it, okay? And I'm like, this thing had like 14 pages of like, four business cards on front to back. And I'm like, if I need another one, I'm like, yeah, okay. It's full.
Of course.
It's full. Because it's like, he was like, I want you during your experience to just everybody that gives you a business card through your process, just put it in there. He goes, you'll need it. It'll be a good reference tool. Man, he was right. I mean, it's like, but those things, having that in your corner, support systems like that, no different than how Swell is or any of the other groups that you've interviewed with, and not being too ashamed to ask for help.
Yeah.
And that, and I'm grateful that we had people before us, I think it's because the Byrne Foundation and because the Byrne family made it front and center to the Cancer Support Network, kind of that literature going out, that I would have never called that number if that number hadn't been posted up on the board. And that was front and center for me, and prayer was big too, because I had an awesome captain. I mean, he very, very religious, and he took me off to the side, and, we're good friends. And he's like, hey, he goes, do you want to pray? And I'm like, if you're leading it, I'm listening, and I did that, and that helped me, right? But that support network and having that in place, and the irony is, I never thought I'd be able to pass that on, right? I'm like, you don't think that you're going to be the one that has to pass it on to the next, and then there's been two other people that I've had to give that to, but if we keep doing that, whether it's the mental health, medical issue, whatever it is, and then reminding somebody that they're worthy, to receive the help.
Yeah. That you're not alone. You're not the only person that's ever been through this.
I think we fall into that where we don't think we're worthy to receive that, because we think we're the ones that we have to give it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we don't realize that, it's like, you never want to see yourself on the other end of the cot, right? Like,
exactly.
like that's like, who wants to be on there and has to see their feet at the end of the cot, and they're like, and you're like, wait, how did I end up here?
Yeah. Well, but that's so common. The common mindset with us is we're the people who do the helping. We're not the people who need the helping.
Right.
And so it can be hard. It can be really hard.
Yeah.
And that can be a huge roadblock and obstacle to get around for people.
Well, I'm a big believer in servant leadership. So I think that the other side of it is, as a person on the receiving end of it, I didn't have enough time at that moment that would get me through, because the way that my cancer was going through, our system is set up where you have to be off on non-compensatory, and you have to be on your own medical, and then you have to hire a lawyer, and then they will go and they will fight on your behalf to be able to get it so that they can prove that it's job related if it is. And so it didn't take very long for us to prove that it was. But the irony in the whole thing is that I used an attorney that was amazing for me, and he the reason why he was so successful in cancer, occupational cancer for firefighters is because there was a firefighter that was in Gladstone that had it, and I was friends with that individual, and his wife didn't give up on that on the occupational cancer side, and she fought after his death. She fought for several years to be able to make sure that the next firefighter family would be occupationally covered. And so, we had Jerry Baton, his family, amazing and strong, and his boys were just absolutely phenomenal. And his mom, dad, sister, just good people. And he, I got to spend a lot of time with Jerry during his recovery, during his health scenario prior to it coming back, and knowing the fighter that he was, that lays the foundation. If you have good friends and you watch how they fight, then you'll be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think when you go in and you're talking about mental health and all that, I think that it's okay to ask for help.
Absolutely, it is.
And because we all need it. Usually we don't know that we need it until a friend says,
hey.
Either a spouse or a friend, right? Or divorce papers come.
Yeah. Well, at that point, you've probably been lying to yourself for a little while.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just ask if you need help, ask for it.
Yeah.
Or if somebody approaches you, don't be offended. They may know you.
Yeah. Hey, you haven't been yourself lately.
Yeah.
So, do you need a Snickers? Or...
Usually works.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Jason, thanks for coming on, man. I really
Appreciate you having
it.
me.
This has been fantastic. Chris, thanks for making a guest appearance. We'll start final thoughts with you.
Oh man, I'm unprepared. I don't know.
So here's the deal. If you go last, you have to close out the show and say what I'd normally say.
I don't remember what you say.
Yeah.
You say a lot of stuff, man. I don't know. My biggest thing is just, there's always a path to get back, no matter what road you're on. There's somebody willing to help you. You just got to be willing to take the help. Sometimes it's not even asking; it's just accepting. That's kind of my thing. And if you see something, say something. I'm always been big on that. Whether it's, I tell the new guys whenever I work with them, if you see something, say something. It's none of this sit there and be quiet. But that's in all walks of life for me. No matter what it is, see something, say something, because you don't know what you're going to catch and you don't know what you're going to change.
Yeah. Jason,
Don't be that guy.
elaborate.
Yeah. If you don't know who I'm talking about, you're that guy. Yeah.
There you go.
That's I mean it. So my thing is be open to criticism, and constructive criticism isn't there to. It's not there for a reason of making you feel bad, and I think that's the one thing I've learned. I have numerous people in my life or that have come through my life that they offered constructive criticism, and early in your life, you think you're going to be sensitive to it, or you are sensitive to it, and then you kind of you don't want to listen to what they're going to have to say. That's just that's just comes with age. And my thing is that if you have an opportunity to hear advice from somebody that's been through hard times, or even if you're that person that's like third row down the chair, like you're and somebody's sharing their life experience and you're listening, take the moment to listen to what's being said. And because believe it or not, it may apply to you down the road. And don't be afraid to be the person that has to share with the other guy that it's okay to get help, and get personal with them. And, if you don't do it in public, do it in private and share your experience. I mean, the best best one-on-one moments have probably sprouted into creating some of the best people that I've had as leaders in my life, because somebody went to them and shared and got them back on track. And we all kind of need that.
Oh, absolutely.
And be nice.
Be
Definitely
nice.
be nice.
Patrick Swayze, be nice.
Yeah.
Well, so my final thoughts. One is you're still valuable. You know, it doesn't matter if you are sick, injured, whatever, you know, and I'll say this for, you know, your situation. You know, you got sick and you can't be a firefighter anymore. Just, you can't. But you found a way to contribute and be valuable to the organization. You found a passion that's fulfilling. And I would encourage everybody to do that. And you can look at that in all aspects of your life. I mean, if we're talking about mental health, you know, just because you go see one therapist that doesn't quite work for you, don't be afraid to keep going and keep trying and find the one that does the treatment modality that's going to work for you. You know, I guess the long and short of it is don't give up. So you got to keep searching, keep working, keep moving forward. So everybody, thanks for stopping by. If you know somebody that is struggling, reach out to them. Let them know you care. Let them know there are resources out there for them. If you are struggling, reach out. There are resources. Don't be afraid to speak up. It's a sign of strength. And the earlier you speak up, the easier that it's going to be. Don't wait till the wheels fall off. So thanks for stopping by, and we will see you guys next time.